Remember the Casebreakers? They're supposedly a group of 40 former law enforcement officials, academics, journalists, and former military intelligence workers. The group was started by Tom and Donna Colbert. Tom is the man behind a book where he identifies Robert W. Rackstraw Sr. as the man responsible for the D.B. Cooper hijacking in 1971. The book includes some very dubious decipherments from D.B. Cooper's letters where Rackstraw supposedly reveals his identity. The book was made into a 2016 History Channel documentary, but I don't think his claims were taken seriously by the FBI, which had shut down their D.B. Cooper investigation. Meanwhile, Colbert accused the FBI of knowing Rackstraw was the hijacker and believes they covered it up because Rackstraw was a CIA operative. Then, in 2021, Colbert and the Casebreakers made a big splash, announcing that they identified Air Force veteran Gary Francis Poste as the Zodiac Killer and the killer of Cheri Jo Bates. TV anchor Dale Julin had been developing Poste as a suspect since about 2014, when a homeless man came to him with a claim that Poste was his stepfather and was the Zodiac Killer. Julin spent a lot of time doing his own kind of code breaking with Zodiac's letters and postcards, finding hidden messages implicating Poste as Zodiac. I won't get into the non-code breaking evidence against Poste again, other than saying I don't believe it's convincing at all, nor does much of the Zodiac research community. I already made a video back in 2021 about some of the Casebreakers' claims. Back then, Dale Julin's complete codebreaking claims were not public yet, because he was waiting to publish his book. It was finally published in January of this year. It's called Catching Zodiac, a true crime memoir with postscript. In his book, Julin talks about a discovery he made that kicked off his long series of decryptions, which convinced him that Gary Francis Poste is linked to the Zodiac crimes. It all starts with Zodiac's Halloween card. The informant, a homeless man named Chris Avery, had already given Julin the name Gary Francis Poste. Julin took this name and tried to find it in Zodiac's correspondences. He called it, quote-unquote, reverse engineering, treating Poste's name as a key of sorts.
Clues everywhere, and why don't I just try reverse engineering? So I started from the back on down, and when I got to the October 1970 Halloween card, it was fascinating.
San Francisco Chronicle reporter Paul Avery received a Halloween card from Zodiac on October 27, 1970. On the back, Zodiac had written this text, presumably his methods of killing.
By fire, by knife, by gun, by rope.
Julin began looking here for all the letters from Gary Francis Poste's name.
Is there a G there? Yeah. Is there an A? Yeah. An R? Yeah. A Y? Yeah.
Okay, he found all of Gary's first name. Gary's middle name is there too. Francis. So far so good. How about his last name? P-O-S? Wow, okay.
And the hair on the back of my neck started to just go straight up. I couldn't believe I was able to do this.
Is there a T? No, but the last E is there. So Gary Francis Poste's full name is spelled out on the Halloween card, except for the letter T. But this didn't stop Julin.
And then I started looking. I can't show you all this, but he uses the word 14. Teen. He wants you to say it out loud. Teen. And there's another 14, right? Teen. And then it hit me. It just hit me like a brick, okay? There, right in the center, spelled out in a teasing way, Paradise Slaves, in the form of a cross, a T.
He uses the Paradise Slaves cross itself as the missing T in Poste.
And there it was, big as life, right in front. The entire card is around a giant T. T. Gary Francis Poste, spelled out in a teasing way.
He then ran with this discovery and reported it to law enforcement. Julin used this discovery to kick off anagram-based decipherments of many of Zodiac's other letters.
This is what started.
He spent several years compiling all his research into a book manuscript, which he eventually shared with Jennifer Buchholz, a U.S. Army veteran and cold case investigator. She's also a member of the Casebreakers team, so I think that's how the Casebreakers started to take on the Zodiac case. Buchholz was convinced that the anagrams helped prove Gary Francis Poste was the Zodiac Killer.
there's no other explanation for this, I don't think. I can't come up with one. So that was my reaction to reading the manuscript.
Well, I believe there are other explanations that are very simple. If you've been following my channel, then you probably already know that anagrams can produce a huge variety of messages. So the obvious first question is, can we find other names besides Gary Francis Poste? Of course we can. To recap, here's how we find Poste's name on the card. GaryFrancisPoste. That's 16 letters long, so let's find other male names that are at least that long. Here's Douglas Carpenter, Robert Greenfield, Sean Patrick O'Brien. And here are a few longer ones. Robert Eugene Sinclair, Stephen Frederick Young, Daniel Patrick Springer. There are plenty of female names too. Barbie Darlene Stevens, Patricia Reeves Ferguson, Geraldine Patrice Pearson, Felicia Denise Peterson. Using all 38 letters, you can make a perfect anagram of 4 different male names. Dick Fabian, Bob Benji, Piper Yu, and Sylvester Fry. And here's a perfect anagram of 4 female names. Felicia Babb, Deb Fryer, Christy Guy, and Yvonne Epps. I tested a bunch of names, and the result is that over 380,000 names can be found among the letters in this part of Zodiac's Halloween card. I'm sure there are many more that I didn't test that can also be found. Julin thinks Gary Francis Poste put his name on the Halloween card on purpose. But if over 380,000 other names can also be found, how do we know someone else didn't stick their name in there? In fact, we can find anagrams of other Zodiac suspects. Stanley D. Baker, a cannibal who killed a lamp designer in San Francisco in 1970. When he got caught, he had another victim's bones in his pocket. And look, we can find bones with his name too. Here's Paul E. Corcoran, who was identified by an anonymous tipster who called Vallejo PD back in 1969. Corcoran was asked to come to the police station, but apparently they ruled him out. Dennis Patrick was said to be a person of interest mentioned in the Vallejo PD police report, but was also ruled out. Aubrey D. Bailey is a name that was supposedly mentioned in the FBI Zodiac files. Supposedly, he was very critical of the San Francisco Police Department and wrote a piece in Zodiac suspect Richard Gaikowski's newspaper. And here's Art Dean Farron, who was Zodiac victim Darlene Farron's husband. There are some celebrities hiding here too. Bruce Springsteen, Steven Spielberg, and here's a serial killer known as the Interstate Killer, Sean Patrick Goebel. We don't have to limit ourselves to people's names. You can rearrange these letters to say all sorts of interesting things. Everyone scars up differently by Big Pay. Read it in Gary Busey's perky, pebbly voice.
I wear an invisible helmet.
Irrefutable evidence by snobby spy Gary. Eradicate skinny, grubby people. Beauties are very forcibly skinned. And here are a few perfect anagrams, which means every single letter is used without leaving any leftovers. It keeps Bobby by suffering in a very dry place. Very big baby donkey briefly escapes fun trip. Up falsifying arrest evidence by perky Bobby. Kept CIA bribed by spying on every buff slayer. You can also find some anagrams about Zodiac's crimes. Keep Darlene Farron's big autopsy. I like festering Napa busybody creep. I finally eviscerate prep guy Brian's body. I also applied my 9/11 test, which I did in the previous episode, where I got that decipherment system to say things about the 9/11 attacks. You can find 9/11 related stuff in the Halloween card too, decades before 9/11 actually happened. Suicide Terrors by Plane Bang. Every Pentagon suicide is by Freak Flyby. United Airlines evokes prayer. 4 airplanes dying by secret. big sky planes bury New York City trade by fire. How can any of these anagrams be designed by the person who sent the Halloween card? Even if one of the anagrams is there on purpose, you'd have to be pretty confident that you found the right one, and the hundreds of thousands of other anagrams in there can just be thrown away. I think Julin was impressed by finding Gary's name in this part of the Halloween card because there aren't that many letters there, compared to Zodiac's other correspondences. There are only 38 letters to pick from, including the T if we allow it from the cross shape. Gary's full name comes from 16 of those letters, but there's a surprisingly large number of ways to arrange 16 letters from that pile of 38 letters. In fact, when we count up the ways to get different 16-letter combinations out of it, it works out to this really big number. This is over 12 quintillion. That's a pretty big number, and it's hard to visualize. I tried to find something to compare it to, and I found that mathematicians at the University of Hawaii tried to estimate the total number of grains of sand on Earth. Their result? 7.5 quintillion grains. That's not far off from the number of different 16-character combinations we can find from the Halloween card. Think about that a little. Imagine every grain of sand on Earth is a different 16-character sequence. As you look through them, eventually you will find one that forms a name or some words. Since there are so many grains, the chances of finding something interesting, completely by accident, goes up substantially. By the way, Julin interprets this cross as a T, so what's stopping us from adding more letters? This looks like an I, so does this, and these do too. And here's an extra L. We could add that L and those 4 I's to our pool of letters, which would make even more anagrams possible. Anagrams are lurking everywhere. Look at the subtitle of Julin's book, A True Crime Memoir with Postscript. It's 31 letters long, shorter than the Halloween card text. If we look with our anagram eyes, we could convince ourselves that Dale put a hidden name in there, such as Eric Scott Stewart, or maybe this one, Christopher Morris. What about Christy Marie Moore? There's at least 6,000 other names in there according to my experiments. There are some perfect anagrams hidden in there too. I wrote cipher to amuse Tim M. Scripter. I wrote ciphers to stump Tammy R. Rice. Write pure trash to commit pie crimes. I imitate Mr. Toomer's 2 cipher creeps. Or maybe the secret message was here, where the cover says, by Dale Julin. The hidden message, perfectly anagrammed there, is Blade in July. Is he predicting a knife attack in July? People who have a strong interest in a suspect and have spent lots of time and effort to support their theory are usually not eager to see these kinds of counterexamples. Sometimes they'll just dismiss them and say, well, my suspect has more connections to the Zodiac case than those other names, so that makes their decipherment correct. But no, they haven't looked at all the hundreds of thousands of names and ruled them out. Anyone with a suspect can find ways to link the name to the Zodiac case with this method. And what about this? If I had a favorite suspect and can't find his name on this part of the Halloween card, isn't there a good chance I could find it anagrammed in Zodiac's other letters? But there's also another danger. Even if Gary Francis Poste really is the Zodiac Killer, that doesn't automatically make this anagrammed decipherment correct. Take for instance the Unabomber, who wrote a lengthy manifesto as part of his campaign of killing and injuring people with bombs he sent in the mail. We now know the Unabomber is Theodore Kaczynski, and looking through his manifesto we can find his name hidden in an anagram. Let's pull the letters out of this part of a sentence Kaczynski wrote. And there you have his name, Theodore Kaczynski. But guess who else's name we can find? Take a look at this part of a different page of the same manifesto. Let's pull out the letters to discover the mystery person. Wah! It's Gary Francis Poste. Someone surprising appears on this page. Uh-oh, it's me. Clearly, these are all appearing completely by chance. When Dale Julin found his suspect's name on the Halloween card, it drove him to find even more anagrams in the other Zodiac letters. Now remember that I can already find hundreds of thousands of names in just this small part of the Halloween card. I can also find hundreds of thousands of phrases that pop out of there. There are only 38 letters there to pick from, yet they can make so many anagrams. But Julin decided to use the entire Halloween card, front and back, including the envelope, to produce an even longer anagram, which he says is Gary Poste's description of what he did to the missing Lake Tahoe nurse Donna Lass. Instead of just 38 letters to make anagrams with, he uses over 280 letters. When you have that many letters to pick from, you can pretty much write anything you want, and that's exactly what Dale Julin did. He thought up a story he thought Gary Poste would tell, and invented anagrams to support it, while discarding anything else that didn't fit with his theme. When you have this much paint to work with, you can make just about any painting you want. It's not even worth the trouble to show other anagrams that are possible from such a large pile of letters. I invite viewers of this video to give it a try. But Julin does show another smaller anagram in a postscript in his book, where he writes about Gary Francis Poste supposedly being a genius and leaving more anagram clues to his identity. Zodiac often wrote, "Please rush to editor," on the envelopes containing his letters written to the local Bay Area newspapers. Julin found an anagram in there.
All right, I have this at the end of the book. At your next cocktail party, share with friends this anagram. Please write down the phrase, "Please rush to editor." Then you write down the next phrase, "Author is Elder Poste," P-O-S-T-E. You'll find that every single letter is used in this mini anagram.
All of the letters in "Please rush to editor" can be rearranged perfectly into the phrase, "Author is Elder Poste."
It's a perfect anagram. There's no letters left over. It's a perfect anagram. And understand, like, again, I always speak to the critics, I guess, but okay, author is Elder Poste. They're like, well, that's kind of a weird way to write it. Well, you go create an anagram. You have to, like, it's not going to be a perfectly written sentence every time or whatever. You really have to play with your letters because you've got to use them all.
Okay, sure. "Please rush to editor" does anagram perfectly to "Author is Elder Poste." All the letters are used and none are left over. But you can make plenty of other perfect anagrams with the same letters, even these anagrams that mention other suspects. "Theodore is past rule." There's another way we can implicate the Unabomber. See to this Paul Doer. Paul Doer is the suspect Jarrett Kobek wrote about in his book, How to Find Zodiac. Art Shields to Europe. Someone left a comment on one of my other videos mentioning a suspect named Art Shields. Here are some perfect anagrams that could reference popular suspect Arthur Lee Allen. Arthur lies to depose. Spoiled to see Arthur. I speed to lose Arthur. And here are some other perfect anagrams that are just simple statements. How do we know Zodiac didn't hide one of these messages instead? Proud to release this. I also used the report. Tried to use real hops. To do their pleasures. Sure to spread the oil. Lost due to his reaper. Repaired due to the loss. Here is a loud protest. P.S. I read the rules too. The rules are stupid. Dale Julin's anagram is just one of many possibilities. "Please rush to editor" is only 18 letters long, and look how many things we could make by simply rearranging those letters. Some math tells us there are close to 67 trillion different ways to rearrange those 18 letters. That's surprisingly large, even with only 18 letters. Imagine what happens to that already huge number when you give yourself a lot more letters to work with, like what Dale Julin did with the entire Halloween card. When you're invested in a suspect, it's tempting to try to find ways to make his name appear in Zodiac's letters and ciphers. There's a legitimate code-breaking technique called cribbing, where you try to guess what you think part of the hidden message might say. If you guessed right, then the rest of the hidden message might reveal itself. The Hardens did something like that to solve Zodiac's first cipher.
And the major thing was that we felt that the word kill or killing would appear in his code, and the word I, because he had an ego.
They were right, their guesses led to the correct solution. But this approach can quickly wander into territory where you start getting tangled up in what I call coincidence generators. Anagrams are a perfect example of coincidence generators because you can find a lot of interesting things by accident with them. Casebreaker Jen Buchholz recognized something unusual about Dale Julin's method.
He had a very unique approach, which was that he had the name of the suspect and he deconstructed the case backwards rather than, when we do a normal investigation, we start with the crime scene and the known facts and the evidence and we work forward. Instead, he started at the end and went backwards.
I think that is a mistake many people make when they look at Zodiac's codes and ciphers. They start with a name in mind and ignore everything that doesn't generate that name. And they don't realize that their steps can and do generate other names. It's too easy to force the name to fit where it doesn't belong. It's funny that Julin includes this quote from economist Ronald Coase in his book. If you torture the data long enough, it will confess. The anagrams have shown us that the data will say anything to stop the torture, and it most certainly gave Dale Julin a false confession. Thank you so much for watching, and please help out my channel by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. And share the video if you can. Take care everyone, thanks so much for your support, and see you next time.